The Lunaverse by Rainbow Double Dash, Episode 17, Through Fire and Flames by Dakai Yemar. Chapter 5, Lullabies in the Dark. Rabbit frowned on the golden armband in her claws. A long crack split the band nearly in half, all the way around the center. Grimacing, she applied a little pressure to the fracture and traced it slowly with her foreclaw. Salamanders had the innate magic to mold metal and stone, and the soft gold moved like putty under her attentions. She was almost halfway done repairing the band when it popped, her claw cutting straight through the material stretched thin for two-made repairs. Snarling, she threw the band as hard as she could, and bounced several times over the piles of rock and crystal, before smacking into the side of one of her soldiers, who had finally succeeded in digging enough of the debris out of the way for the last soldier to crawl out. He looked up, but one look at her face and he swiveled back to work, trying to avoid her attention. Rabbit rubbed her now bare wrist and glared at the rubble. "Useless, worthless trash! You shouldn't throw that away, Rabbit. It might be a long time before you get another." Rabbit spun around and glowered. "What are you doing here, Bahia? The High Priestess asks me to check on you." Bahir swept his gaze lazily over the ruin that had been the cavern. "It seems you couldn't even handle an empty cave on your own." They were down at the bottom of one of the many deep trenches that branched off from the crystal junction. Ruined timbers from the cart that track lay scattered around, piles of jagged stone and fragments of gems. Raging all the way up to the ceiling, far above them was a loose wall of stones and a steep slope, covering the cavern's entrance from the light. "I hardly did this myself." Rabbit spat, rising up and trying to loam over the smug salamander. "Ponies came down from the other side and ambushed us. It was one of them that caused the cave-in. I thought dealing with enemies was your job." "Only those who threaten the hourglass. This is your mess." He slided it up to the slope and cautiously tapped it. The gravel shifted alarmingly, and several pieces tumbled down. But after a moment, the structure settled. "It appears we can't go this way anymore. It's a miracle this hasn't collapsed already. Strange. It doesn't look like this flattery. Are you listening to me?" She grabbed him by the shoulder and spun him around so she could stare him in the eyes. "I spent those worthless soldiers up along the walls to check, and they didn't smell any blood. The ponies must have gotten away. The cave-in might be only on this side, and they could be anywhere. You have to do nothing," he interrupted, darting his head forward so sharply she had to bend almost back over herself to avoid getting hit. "You, however, have to tell Marlith that the maid tunnel we worked so hard to prepare is gone." Rabbit gaped at him for a few moments, then swallowed her suddenly dry mouth. "I don't have to tell her right away, do I? There must be some other tunnels we can find. There's no need to take this out of proportion." "Don't worry. Her pendant appears to be empty for the time being." Bahir smiled condescendingly at her and slithered along the edge of the cave-in. "See, let one of the handlers get away from punishment earlier. Marlith won't be turning anyone to stone until we return." "But you could have mentioned that at the beginning," Rabbit hissed, glaring at his back. "Where are you going?" Bahir gave her a look that said he couldn't believe even she could be this thick, and gestured to several small tunnels branching out from the trench. "To find the alternate route, of course. Before the entire colony arrives and finds your failure." He slipped into one of the tunnels, utterly confident she'd follow. Clutching her claws so tight she could feel scales popping, Rabbit sat glaring at the tunnel, as his glow steadily grew fainter and fainter. But she knew that he was right. Melted scales, slashing a command to the rest, she slid along into the tunnel. The rest of the salamanders quickly followed, leaving the trench cloaked in gloom. Ah, yes, that's the spot, right there. Oh, Trixie sighed. That's the 4th so far. The salamander, whose name she learned was Greg, said as he slightly scraped at the back of Trixie's neck. Well, these bonds are making me a bit stiff. Trixie waved her bound legs to demonstrate. I'd get the itch myself if you just loosened the ropes. Nice try. Greg chuckled, shifting her to a slightly more comfortable position on his shoulder. It's not like I get away, she grumbled, studying his expression out of the corner of her eye. She didn't really expect that to work, but she knew he only grew suspicious of her if she didn't even try to plead or trick him. The best trick up a magician's sleeve is the ability to talk to the audience into believing anything. That's what her grandfather had taught her. If this salamander thought that Trixie was best, he'd completely be blindsided when she actually applied herself. And more importantly, her headache was almost gone. It had been steadily slipping away for a while now, and while she hadn't tried anything yet, it shouldn't be much longer until she felt well enough to try her visibility spell. Of course, getting away from her captors was only the first part of her problems. She burned those bridges after she got 3. Up ahead, Marlith turned around a bend and suddenly screeched in anger. Again! The rest of the swarm followed, and discovered that yet another tunnel was completely caved in. They had heard a deep rumbling echoing through the tunnels earlier, not long after that smarmy one had been sent off, and since then they had kept running into blocked tunnels. Marlith growled at the pile of rocks that they were personally assaulting her parents. We're going through. What did you say, priestess? One of the salamanders asked. I said, this time we're going through, Marlith roared, rising up on her tail to tower over the unfortunate speaker. Come hold this now! She jabbed her arms at several salamanders, including Greg surprisingly, and finally searched him to the rubble. Why did he pick you? Trixie asked as he constantly set her down. Don't you have to guard the dangerous prisoner? Greg grinned again and patted his heavily muscled form. Not many salamanders are built for this kind of thing like I am. We may live underground, but we take tunnels, and not make them. I turned away and started clawing at the pile of rocks. But Trixie wasn't paying him attention anymore. Unless the shooting pain in her back was something completely different, he had actually set her down on a soft rock. She almost couldn't believe her luck. Quickly, she scanned the others and found that none of them were paying her any attention. Slowly, she worked the stone off the ground and into her hooves. Careful to squirm as little as possible, she began to saw the rock with her bonds. Apparently, she wasn't still enough, because Marlith, who had been glaring around at her minions as if hunting for something to chew them out for, suddenly narrowed her eyes at her and slithered over. Trixie went still and gave her best innocent yet terrified scare. The second part wasn't as hard as it should have been. Struggling won't let you do you any good down here, she gloated, crossing her arms and showing all her teeth and what might be a confused smile, if you were sadistic or blind. Desperate to distract the priestess, Trixie's gaze fell down upon the giant hourglass that he had stolen from the library. The 4 salamanders that had been carrying it were crawling around it now, making sure that the thing was undamaged and brushing loose dirt off of it. What do you want with that? Marla followed her eyes and grinned in pure pleasure at the sight of the artifact. You ponies never even suspected the power of this hourglass, else you'd never have left it in such an unprotected place. The sands it contains hold the power to revert anything magically enchanted back to its original state. With this mighty magic, our queen will finally be revived. Several of the nearby salamanders raised a cheer at that, but rarely. Trixie tried to suppress a grimace. She was monologuing. Again! Still, you never knew what piece of information was the one you needed the most. Your queen? She asked, trying to put as much interest into her tone as she could manage. The terror of Queen Medusa! Marlith cried, spreading her arms wide, and clearly striking a pose she must have practiced in a mirror to pull off so confidently. So, we have a title to our spy novel now. Not that I complain if a suave stallion swooped in and took them all out for me. Trixie smiled woodenly, but nodded. But it hardly needed the encouragement to continue. Centuries ago, Queen Medusa led our forebears in glorious conquest, and the nations crumbled before her army. But your princess, Richter, turned the queen's own magic back into her somehow, and trapped her in a marble prison. But we have kept her safe and secret, hidden through our declining generations, waiting for this day to arrive. Soon we will set her free, and none will stand before her gaze. High Priestess! Marlith hissed in irritation at being interrupted and spun around to face the unfortunate salamander. He swallowed reflexively and gestured to rust behind him. The tunnel is packed with hard soil behind the rocks, High Priestess. It'll take us hours, if not days, to clear it. We don't know how deep it's... But... The salamander faltered as Marlith slid closer, her face growing darker with every word. One of her claws searched through the necklaces around her neck. By stretching her neck, Trixie could just make out what looked like a large pearl hanging from a delicate gold chain before the priestess's claws closed over it. Suddenly, Marlith thrust another claw out at the unfortunate messenger, and a familiar blue nimbus surrounded her talons. An identical aurora wrapped around the male's neck and lifted him into the air. He clawed at his neck, choking as the magic clenched his throat tight. Marlith slashed savagely, and the salamander was thrown the length of the tunnel to crash into the wall on the other side. He slumped onto the ground, but no one made a move to help him. Every one of the salamanders was lying belly down on the ground, with their eyes averted. Marlith surveyed them for several moments, then nodded and snapped her claws, signaling him to rise. That was a very good point. We will have to find a new path, she said, as if nothing happened. There was another branch a ways back that wasn't blocked. We'll move out in 5 minutes. Feeling sick to her stomach, Trixie tried several times to get around the shock of locking up her tongue. That was my magic! Smiling in unmistakable glee, Marlith leaned in close until she was almost nose to nose with the unicorn. My ancestor discovered the pearl not long after our queen was imprisoned, but I was the first to learn it could be used for more than gaining Medusa's blessing. One of her claws closed around Trixie's horn, and the world seemed to twist. For a moment, a round shape among Marlith's necklaces glowed blue. But then, the return of the headache blotted out Trixie's ability to concentrate. The priestess might have said something, but whatever it was lost on her. Then Grick was there, lifting her up onto his shoulders and carting her off like a limp sack of grain. Escape seemed more distant than ever, but Trixie gritted her teeth in determination. Somehow, magic or no magic, she would get away from the maniac. Shifting slightly, she felt the half-cut bonds that Grick had forgotten to check, and plotted. Charlie grunted and stepped back warily, careful for the loose chips and shards that slid under her hooves. There's a little bit of a gap up there, but I don't think we can fit through it. Truthfully, she didn't think there was anything on the other side anyway, but there was no reason to bring that to attention. Carefully, she walked around their clear space and frowned thoughtfully. From what she could make out, there was a rough oval about 25 paces wide and maybe half that tall. Probably less than that in places, but There was no way for them to tell. The ceiling appeared to be one huge unbroken crystal that had gotten wedged against one side of the tunnel they had fled through. From whence you could feel the jagged piles of rocks comprising nearly all of the walls around them. It was the only thing preventing them from being buried alive. The last bit of wall was smooth stone, without even a single crevasse to offer escape. For the time being, the entire structure felt stable, but there was no telling how long that would last. But the worst part of how dark it was, because it wasn't just dark. It was the oppressive kind of dark you could only find in the deepest parts of the world, where light had never fallen naturally. It seemed a solid thing, and Shirley had to fight against the need to push through it with her hose like water. It was a constant weight on her eyes as well, a dull ache that spread from the back of her eye and throbbed with the need to see. Realizing she had lost herself in gloomy thoughts again, she tried to where she last remembered her friend had been. "Hey, Ditsy, how are you holding up? You haven't said anything for a while."
"It's all my fault."
"Oh, Ditsy," Shirley said soothingly. "Of course it isn't. Any pony would have panicked back there with everything collapsing like that."
"It's not just that,"
Ditsy cried suddenly, surprisingly loud in the stillness. "I tried! I was actually trying!" Shirley quickly crossed the distance to where she had left the Pegasus, but found the spot vacant. "Where has she gone to?" "Don't worry about it. I understand. You don't like enclosed spaces, do you?" She froze as a soft sound reached her ears. The sound of a pony trying her best not to cry, and barely succeeding. The darkness made Dissy's voice even smaller and more helpless.
I thought I could do it for Trixie. She needed us, as long as I didn't think about it. But it's worse for me, because of my... And then the rocks were falling everywhere. And I couldn't think. I just ran it. Now we're trapped. We're never getting out of here."
A sob racked her frame as her voice raised an octave in despair. "I'm never going to see—" Ditsy was cut off with a gasp as Shirley suddenly wrapped her forelegs around her in a crushing hug. She held on all the tighter as tears spilled onto her shoulders, and the Pegasus clutched into her embrace. The two of them sat together for a few minutes. Then Ditsy realized Shirley was humming something softly, and then she started to sing. "Little foal, be not afraid. The darkness presses on all sides like an unwanted stranger. There is no danger. I am here tonight. Little foal, be not afraid. Though falling stones and crystals crash hides away your tear-stained face, I am here tonight. And someday you'll know that nature is so. The same stone that draws you near me holds the rivers and land and forests and sand, makes the beautiful world that you see in the morning." Dizzy's sobs slowed as the lullaby washed over her. Encouraged, did Shirley raise her voice and held on all the tighter. "Little foal, be not afraid. Those stone walls mask your beloved moon, and its candlelight beams still keep pleasant dreams. I am here tonight. Little foal, be not afraid. The dark makes creatures of our fears, and all that terror demands is not real, understand. And I am here tonight. And someday you'll know that nature is so. The same stone that draws you near me holds the rivers and land and forest and sand, makes the beautiful world that you see in the morning." Dissy's cries were almost gone by now, though tears still fell slowly. Shirley swallowed softly and lowered her voice to a near whisper. The next part almost always choked her up whenever she heard it. "For you know, once even I
was a little foal, and I was afraid. But a gentle sun pony always came to dry all my tears, trade sweet sleep to fears, and give a kiss goodnight. Well, now I am grown, and these days have shown fear's a part of how life goes. But it's dark and it's late, so I'll hold you and wait till your frightened eyes do close.
Launching into the last chorus, Ditzy surprised her by joining in. Their voices seemed to push the oppressive atmosphere away. Far, far away.
And I hope that you'll know that nature is so. The same stone that draws you near me holds the rivers and land, the forest and sun, makes the beautiful world that you see in the morning. Everything's fine in the morning. The dark will be gone in the morning. But I will still be here in the morning.
Darn it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. The song always gets me. I thought I could make it. I really did. I hope you enjoyed me breaking down again. Give me a moment. I'll continue in a bit. Oh God, that song.
Is your heart for you, dear? Are you okay? Do you need a moment?
I'm fine, Trixie. I really am. Thanks, by the way, for keeping an eye on me.
Hey, not mention it.
The last notes of the song faded into the air around them as they sat together. After a while, Ditzy leaned back and wiped her nose.
How did you know?
Charlie blinked, waiting for her to explain.
That song.
Ditzy sighed, emotion heavy in her voice.
My mother used to sing it to me every night.
Charlie smiled.
Mine as well. It never failed to make me feel better, no matter how scared I was.
Ditzy giggled. The sound was wonderful in Charlie's ears.
But I remember it being about rainstorms when my mother sang it.
And that's the way the original song was, too. Doesn't make it any less sad.
I didn't think that rain was the problem,
Charlie said offhandedly, and the two of them broke off into giggles again. It felt good to laugh, and every peal made the darkness less scary. Out of nowhere, there was a crack of breaking stone, and rubble around them seemed to shift alarmingly. Dizzy clutched her friend tight again.
Is it coming down?
Shh! Charlie whispered. But before she could say anything more, there was a great whoosh of dust, and suddenly there was light. Pouring out from a large crack that had appeared in the smooth stone walls, the flickering light of a large torch lit up their little cave. A creature poked its head into the crack and stared at the two of them. It was covered in dark gray fur, and its face was oddly scrunched. It wore a studded collar around its neck and red vest, whose pockets seemed to be filled with gems of various colors. Its two large paws gripped either end of the crack, pushed it a little wider, allowing the creature to pass through. "You ponies are so noisy!" the creature said in a gravelly voice, its green eyes glowing slightly in the gloom. Luna banked a little to adjust to her path to the north. At these speeds, even the simplest of turns could slam a Pegasus into what would feel like a solid wall of air, if one was not careful. But, fortunately, she didn't have to change her course very far. Up ahead, a rolling black cloud covered the sky in a great sweeping mass. The whole thing had an evil air about it that she instinctively shied away from as she crossed it, not wanting the smog to touch her if she could help it. Right under the center of the cloud, she could make out a mountain rising high into the skyline, and a thick stream of black smoke spilling out from its peak. The whole cloud was much larger than she feared, as she strained to catch a little extra speed. The sooner she dealt with the dragon, the sooner the cloud could be dealt with. Something about it just felt ominous.
Don't worry, folks. We gave him a dose of nostalgia crank and like Kara and a whole entire routine of Robin Williams. Now martial art for easier should be back to normal. We apologize for what we had to do, but seriously, listen to that song. Tell me you don't tear up at least once.
Chapter 6. New friends and new foes. The smoke spread faster than we anticipated, Commander Ruby Spiral explained, standing to attention before opening of her tent.
The wing teams were attempting to contain it, but I suggest the all accomplished was to shift the pollen apart from the clouds and get caught in themselves. We had no warning when the pent-up clouds suddenly dispersed and rolled over base camp. The whole fiasco was over in minutes. Luckily, we had successfully evacuated the last of the surviving towns earlier that day, but the cloud has been spreading unchecked ever since.
Fortunate for us, then, that the pollen doesn't seem to remain potent for long, Luna said, flexing her wings as if to brush imagined particles from the feathers. I was well into the cloud's shadow before I sensed the pollutant in the air. While the black cloud itself remains a problem, the area of induced sleeps seems to have stopped.
Ruby Spiral struck her head. If we just move the camp farther out, then at least those who are affected by the pollen remain in a stable condition. There's no need for food or water, as if the stuff is tailored specifically not to harm ponies. Just shut us down for a while.
Yes, Luna said, sounding almost lost in thought. I have considered that this plant didn't come about naturally. It's too convenient.
So, it doesn't affect you in the same way? Ruby asked. It didn't seem surprised when the princess shook her head. I wish I could go with you, princess.
You've done your job, Commander. Now it's time for me to do mine.
She turned away, lifting off the ground with a firm shove. Ruby Spiral watched as the princess rose into the air and seemed to shimmer. Within moments, the alicorn was gone, leaving the commander staring up into the starry sky.
Well, I guess I could treat this like a small vacation, Ruby said to herself thoughtfully, picking up a plate of cake that hadn't been there a second ago. She stepped back into her tent and let the flap close behind her.
Luna blinked, focused her eyes, coming back to the here and now. In front of her, Commander Ruby Spiral lay on her field desk where she had fallen, several reports still pinned to the table beneath her. She snored softly through her nose, but otherwise made no move to wake. Checking her condition one last time, Luna spread her wings and lifted off, circling the camp slowly. There was nothing she could do for the pony sleeping below until she dealt with the smoke. Several minutes later, she crested the top of the mountain. Below, the mouth of a large cave sat completely covered in a large carpet of vibrant bell-shaped blossoms. A thick stream of black smoke poured from the lip of the cave. But Luna only had eyes for the flowers. Alighting before the field, she called upon her power, and the temperature around her dropped drastically. The suddenly arctic chill descended over the flowers in an instant, freezing them into solid statues. Luna nodded to herself and stepped lightly around the stems into the cave's entrance. The preserved plants could be studied later, when there was time. The cave turned after a short walk and opened up into a large cavern. Stepping out into open space, the plan Luna had been preparing slowly faded from her thoughts. She had come prepared to deal with a dragon that had just grown to adulthood and was looking to find a new territory for itself. But this wasn't a young dragon. This one was old, over a half-millennium old at the least. He laid in the center of the cavern, curled into a tight ball, much like a sleeping cat. But he wasn't asleep. Instead, he glared at her as if he had been expecting her. The thick stream of smoke, curling from the side of his mouth, suddenly ceased like a switch that had been thrown, and he slowly uncoiled his neck into the air. The pile of coins he lay upon was pitiful, barely making a thin layer between him and the ground.
I see you, Luna,
the dragon growled, in a voice that was like a rumbling avalanche, before she could recover from her hesitation.
After all this time, I finally see you.
Luna regained her composure and stood straighter, adjusting her approach on the fly. This is a surprise.
I was expecting to find a young dragon, one who did not know that this land had been denied to your kind for generations. Why have you come here, when you should have known that you could not stay?" The dragon chuckled deeply, completely ignoring the threat implied in her question.
"After all this time, is that really all you have to say to me? Do you not recognize me, Starborn?"
With a frown, "I have met few dragons over the years. I do not ever remember meeting you." The dragon's head shot forward, and for the last time, Luna got a good look at his eye. "He's blind!" she thought, leaning back slightly in surprise. His golden eyes were clouded, and lenses completely covered by cataracts. "Oh, nearly blind."
"Surely I haven't changed that much,"
The dragon continued, somehow still watching her, as he pulled his head back and stood up.
"I may have only been an adolescent when we met, but you left quite the impression. One of the last things I ever saw, so that's another thing I owe you."
"Who are you? How do you know me?" Luna asked. A dark suspicion had crept into the back of her mind, but that couldn't be. The dragon smiled.
"I've been convinced to go by the name of Solar Carithimon again. Seems appropriate."
Luna thought fast. The name meant nothing to her, but in ages past, the dragons collected syllables like they collected gems. Their names were a way to brag about their accomplishments. So, in their old tongue, "He who swore revenge against the sun," Luna translated.
"For a full day I glared into the sun until my world went dark."
The dragon suddenly reared on his back and roared.
"Roar! I swore revenge against all Alcorns for what you did 1,000 years ago, pitting my fury against the only one I could find for the murder of my family."
Solar Carithmion leaned forward quickly and loosed a giant cone of fire directly into the princess's face. Raindrops flew back down to her friends and shook her head. "I don't see any way to get over the rubble." "Well, we aren't going to give up," Lyra declared, glaring up at the uneven slope to where the crystal caves had been before the cave-in. "Somehow, we are going to get Dizzy and Charlie out of here." "Are you sure you can't just use your magic to clear a path?" Carrot Top asked, rubbing her head once again. She had hit it pretty badly when they were thrown clear of the minecart, but she seemed to be getting over quickly enough. Lyra considered the slope once more, but sighed and backed off a step. "No, I'd probably do more harm than good if I tried. The whole thing could collapse if I start. We can't risk bringing it down on their heads if they're trapped." "I'm telling you, I saw them run down a different tunnel." Raindrops gestured to one of several different openings in the walls around them. "We should try seeing if any of those other tunnels are connected around back." "But what if they get out and are trying to find us?" Carrot Top put in worriedly. "They might head back here and we miss them. We should probably wait." Raindrop stopped her hose irritably. "And they might not be able to get back here. You can stay and wait, but I think we need to search for them." "Calm down!" Lyra said, stepping between the two of them. "We can't split up any more than we already have." She sighed, sitting down with a plop. How did Charlie make leading so easy? "I'm sorry. Just a little frustrated, you know." Raindrop scuffed the dirt a little, then suddenly chuckled. "We didn't really plan this very well, did we? We just charged straight down the first hole we could find and hope for the best. And now more of us need rescuing than we started." There drew a laugh from her friends, but it was a rueful one. Lyra found herself staring at the wall of stones again. "I may have to risk clearing the path through that after all. We can't go after Trixie without the others. Of course, we don't even know where she is right now anyway, or how to get her away from those creatures if we can find her. Raindrops is right. We are in way over our heads." She was about to voice her thoughts when the earth beneath her host shifted. She jumped back in surprise, like an enormous dog-like creature launched itself from a hole in the ground that clearly hadn't been there moments ago. The creature was a head taller than Lyra and heavily muscled, with bluish fur and arms so long they pressed the ground as it stood up.
Found you!
The creature said, blinking at them eats and gesturing at the hole it came from.
Quickly, go down the hole before others find us!
The three ponies looked at each other in stunned silence for a moment. Who are you? Lyra asked cautiously, eyeing the hole once more than the creatures popped out of it.
No time for questions. Ponies go down hole now before Salamancer's here and come back.
The dog made as if to grab Lyra, but she jumped out of her reach.
Girls?
A familiar voice was heard out of the hole.
It's all right. They're not going to hurt us, I think.
They were down the hole in a flash, squeezing against each other in a tight fit, before it opened up to a large space. Charlie and Ditzy met them in a rush as they fell out of the passage and spent the next few minutes in their group hug, laughing in their relief at being reunited.
Eric! Pony! Quiet, ponies! Others can hear you!
Lyra blinked and finally focused on the area around her. They were in an unnaturally circular cave, lit by torches set into the walls, and several tunnels branched down at either end. The small passages they had come through appeared to have been somehow filled in with dirt, although where the dirt had come from was a mystery. There were two more of the dog creatures next to the first, one wearing a red vest instead of the gray, and the second one about half the size of the others. It was the one in red who had spoken, and had his paws over his ears.
There! Your pony friends have been found! Now, get out of our caves!
The three dogs pointed toward the tunnel across from the cave from them.
No!
Dizzy said, untangling herself from her friends, and rushing up to the creatures.
We still have one more friend to find. You have to help us find her.
That isn't what we promised!
The red-coated one replied, narrowing his eyes.
We find ponies! You go away! Now, go!
Where are they?
Carrot Top asked terribly softly, but the big one heard her anyway. He flashed forward and scowled right in front of her face.
Diamond Dogs! And you are trespassing!
Trespassing?
Carrot Top sputtered, stepping back and bumping into the small one, who had somehow gotten behind her.
Yes! These mines belong to us!
He said, reaching up and pulling a silver of purple crystal from Carrot Top's mane.
And when the ponies and salamanders are gone, we can work fixing them!
Salamanders?
Raindrops asked, trying to keep up with the rapid shifts in the conversation.
Those snake creatures that took Trixie,
Charlie explained, striding forward to the one in red.
Please, the salamanders are the ones who have our friend. It's the whole reason we came down here in the first place.
We won't leave until we rescue her.
Perhaps!
The one in red growled evilly, as the other two ran over to stand at his sides. He pointed sharply at Lyra.
You, Bowie! Do you know how to find gems?
Lyra thought quickly, but came up short. I'm sorry, but I don't know how.
Bah!
The red-coated dog interrupted, waving a paw at her dismissal.
And you ponies are no use to us! Eat these tunnels!
The three dogs turned and lopped off to the opposite tunnel.
Wait!
Dizzy sounded in desperation.
We're not the only ones down here.
The three dogs froze just past the entrance to the tunnel. The big one leaned back.
More ponies?
Yes, the whole royal army. They were to come down after us with the elements.
Dizzy said. The small dog pulled his ears down sharply in irritation and whined.
Not more ponies! It's just not fair! Salamanders take tunnels, ponies running everywhere! We found these mines! These jewels are ours!
We could tell the royal army to leave, if you help us.
Shelley offered, smiled winningly. The others put on their most helpful smiles and nodded in unison. The dog in the red vest scrunched his face and fought for a few agonizing seconds before slapping a paw over his face.
Fine, fine! We will take you, but nothing more! We lead! Ponies get friend!
Yes! Thank you!
Lyra bounced, often for the first time in what seemed like ages.
I can't believe that worked. Go Ditsy!
Quiet!
The red dog growled again.
We stink, so no noises! Salamanders don't dig like diamond dogs! We have blocked tunnels, forcing salamanders to go back where they came from! This way!
The dogs dashed off from the tunnel, and the five friends hurried to keep up. Finally, Lyra thought, we have something like a plan. Hold on, Trixie! We're coming! Luna barely snapped out of her shock in time to leap to the side, the flames catching a bit of her tail and burning through the enchantment. A dragon's fire breath could burn through magic, but to have sheared through one of hers, so it's true. He must be really as old as he says, which means that. Luna shook her head, banished the feelings of guilt that threatened to well up within. This dragon may be a physical reminder from the darkest time in her life, but she could deal with the memories after she stopped it from killing her. Solar Marathon tried to track her with a cone of fire, but she easily swooped into the air and circled behind him. She charged her horn and blasted a beam of pure force onto his back. The magic slanted to his spine just below his neck and was absorbed. Luna blinked, once again nearly paralyzed with shock.
That should not have been possible. How could you be that resistant to magic?
The dragon spun in place, and Luna let loose a swarm of magic missiles, hundreds of the beams lighting up the cave. They slanted to his arms, chest, and head, and were completely absorbed. Dragon barely noticing the onslaught at all. His arms shot out through the stream of pure magic and slanted to the princess, crushing her into the cavern wall. Great cracks spread out from the impact as the dragon leaned his whole weight into it.
I have waited too long to hold you in my grasp.
Solar gloated, but a look of surprise dampened his victory as he felt himself being pushed back. Luna shoved off the wall, easily matching the dragon's strength. With a snarl, Solar swiped his tail along the wall before she could shove him back with enough to escape, catching her in the side and flinging her across the cave. Luna caught herself in midair, and suddenly there were dozens of her, flying off in nearly every direction. Solar spat fire, catching one or two at a time, which dissolved into a blue mist. But most of them swooped and ducked under his attacks. The dragon frowned, then spun around and slid his hand down on the earth behind him. The princess slowly appeared under his claws, having turned herself invisible when he made all those clones.
I may not see much, but I can see magic clearly.
Solar growled, preparing to bleed flames onto his trapped opponent.
And you shine like the moon in an empty sky. Your little illusions can't fool my eyes.
When did I say they were illusions? Luna said, glaring up at him through his claws. The dragon blinked in confusion. That's when the clones attacked. Rather than casting more magic, the first two simply bucked the dragon in the back of his head. Solar bellowed in surprise and pain, the force of the kicks tipping him to the side and directly onto the path of three more clones. They slammed into him with their hooves, knocking him further away from the first Luna and crossing him into the wall. The remaining Lunas whipped up a torrential gale to press him against the wall and hold him there. The first Luna rose up from the ground with the support of two others.
You cannot win this fight, Solar I have the measure of your endurance now.
I will have my revenge!
The dragon roared, straining against the wind.
I understand your grievance against me, but this fight is decided. Stand down and you may yet survive.
Not after all this time.
He growled dangerously and suddenly spun, slamming his arms against the wall above him with the earth-shattering force. The wall and a good part of the ceiling above him blew apart, raining slabs of rocks and stalactites down on the alicorns. They were forced to break off their assault, and it dodged the debris, and within seconds, Solar was among them, lancing out with his arms and wings, and knocking them spiraling from the air. Luna concentrated, and dissolved all her bodies into mist, flowing herself back together into one. The ones who had fallen into the dragon's fire, she could feel the loss of diminished power, but refused to let it show on her face.
Time to end this!
Magic crackled around her horn. She sent a powerful bolt of lightning arcing through the air as the dragon centered on her again. He leapt to the side, but the lightning curved after him and caught him on the shoulder. Solar bellowed in pain and clutched his shoulder, which was bleeding slightly. His resistance scales have stopped the worst of the attack. But even they had limits.
The fight is clear,
Luna declared, gathering even more power onto her horn as the two of them circled the cave, glaring at each other warily.
Did you really think you could win against me in a fight? I have dealt with far more powerful foes than you.
Of course, I don't think I could win a fair fight.
Luna almost missed a step, but caught herself and narrowed her eyes. What trick is this?
I have learned 1,000 years ago to plan my revenge.
The dragon growled, one claw still clutching against her shoulder.
Do you think just sitting in some random cave and attacking you head on was all I could come up with? My plan is a thing of beauty. Although, I'll have to replace the parts about attacking by surprise now. This was just to delay you.
Delay me? From what?
Your sister says hello.
That stopped Luna in her tracks.
We can keep fighting, but I know I can't win that way.
The dragon continued to pace, but even in her shock, Luna had no openings for him to exploit, so he kept his distance.
Still, I could drag it out for hours. By then, whatever your sister wanted you away from Canterlot will be over. Might already be over. But I'd rather kill you on my own terms anyway.
With that, the dragon spun and shot into the air with a great burst of his wings, advancing into a network of tunnels at the back of the caves. Luna galloped forward to follow him, but he hesitated. He might be lying about Corona, but dare she risk it? Giving one last look at the caves, she turned and launched herself toward the exit of the cavern. Of course, she couldn't risk it. Pouring every last bit of her remaining energy into speed, she burst from the cave and straight toward the air, towards Canterlot.